Have you ever heard of a place so haunted, so filled with sorrow, that people decided it was better to just forget it ever existed? To seal it away and pretend it was never there. Today, we're venturing into the chilling tale of a forgotten village, a place locked away after a mysterious disaster, where the land itself seems to weep for the souls it lost. This isn't just a campfire story. It's a true account of a place where the past refuses to die, and locals warn that some doors are better left unopened. Imagine a small, secluded valley, once home to a thriving community. We won't use its real name, to respect the privacy and fear of those living nearby. But let's call it Sorrow's Hollow. For generations, life was simple, predictable. Then, centuries ago, disaster struck. Historical records are vague, almost deliberately obscured, but they hint at a sudden, virulent plague that swept through the valley with terrifying speed. It wasn't a slow decline. It was an annihilation. Entire families vanished within days, their homes becoming silent tombs. Faced with an unknown and unstoppable force, the neighboring communities made a desperate decision. Instead of sending aid, they sealed the valley. They blocked the only road with a wall of earth and stone, effectively quarantining the dead and the dying, condemning them to a fate alone. The village of Sorrow's Hollow was erased from maps, its name stricken from records. It became a taboo, a ghost story told the children to keep them from wandering too far into the woods. For a long time, Tisil Eld. The story faded into local folklore, but as the decades turned into centuries, people living on the periphery of that forbidden land began to notice things. Strange, unsettling things that couldn't be easily explained away. Farmers working fields that bordered the old valley reported the first of the phenomena, a sound carried on the wind. A sound they described as a low, mournful crying, seeming to emanate from the very ground beneath their feet. It wasn't an animal, and it wasn't the wind. It was a sound of inconsolable grief, a chorus of sorrow that would rise at dusk and fade by dawn. Then came the lights. Locals called them soul fires, or weeping lights. On moonless nights, faint, ethereal orbs of pale blue and white light would be seen drifting silently among the trees inside the sealed valley. They would hover over the spot where the village once stood, sometimes dancing slowly, other times just hanging in the air like lost stars. Skeptics tried to explain it as swamp gas or bioluminescence, but the lights appeared in all seasons, even in the dead of winter, and they seemed to possess a quiet, watchful intelligence that defied any natural explanation. One of the most unsettling accounts comes from a man named Thomas, a retired forester whose family has lived in the area for generations. He told me that as a young man, he and a few brave friends decided to ignore the warnings. They wanted to see the ghost village for themselves. They found a place where the earthen wall had partially eroded and slipped inside. He said the feeling was immediate. The air grew heavy, cold, and a profound sadness washed over them. So intense, it felt hard to breathe. As they walked deeper, the forest floor was unnaturally soft, covered in a thick carpet of moss that muffled their footsteps. They found the ruins, just a few stone foundations, almost completely reclaimed by nature. But the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. Thomas described it not as a menacing presence, but as a deeply curious and sorrowful one. He said it felt like thousands of eyes were on them from the trees, from the shadows, from the very soil. They felt like intruders in a private, sacred place of mourning. The most terrifying moment happened when one of his friends tripped over an exposed root. As he fell, his hand plunged into the soft earth. When he pulled it out, he let out a scream. Clutched in the dirt was what looked like a small, hand-carved wooden doll, the kind a child might have played with. As they stared at it, a sound rose up around them, a child's soft weeping. So close it was, as if the child were standing right beside them. They didn't wait to see what happened next. They scrambled out of the valley and never, ever went back. This feeling of being observed is a common thread in all the stories. Hikers who have accidentally strayed too close to the valley's edge report a sudden, prickling sensation on the back of their neck, the unshakable conviction that they are not alone. Some have even reported seeing fleeting shapes in their peripheral vision, tall, shadowy figures standing motionless between the trees, just watching. When they turn to get a better look, there's nothing there, but the feeling remains, a silent, ancient vigilance. Modern paranormal investigators have tried to study the area, but with little success. Electronic equipment famously malfunctions near the valley. Batteries drain in minutes. Cameras refuse to focus, and audio recorders capture nothing but static, or worse, faint whispers that are only audible on playback, speaking in a long-dead dialect that no one can understand. It's as if the energy of the place, the sheer weight of its tragic history, actively resists being documented or understood by the outside world. One particularly chilling story involves a team of university researchers who were mapping the geology of the region, using ground-penetrating radar from the outer boundary. They were hoping to understand the soil composition. Their equipment, however, revealed something far more disturbing. Beneath the surface, the radar showed countless anomalies, densely packed in a way that was inconsistent with natural formations. The lead geologist, deeply unsettled, later confided to a local historian that the patterns were disturbingly similar to what you'd expect from a mass, unmarked burial site. The entire valley floor was essentially a graveyard. This discovery gave a new, horrifying context to the crying sounds. Was it just folklore? Or were people actually hearing the echoes of the hundreds, perhaps thousands, of souls buried in a panic, without ceremony, without last rites, their memory intentionally erased from the world? Are they trapped, eternally reliving their final, lonely moments? The locals believe so. They believe the spirits are not malicious, but are simply lost. They are the forgotten ones, reaching out from their sealed tomb, not to harm, but to be remembered. The ghost lights are their souls, wandering the land they once called home. The feeling of being watched is their silent plea not to be forgotten. They don't want revenge. They just want acknowledgement. This is why the warnings to stay away are so stern. It's not just about protecting the living from a potential haunting. It's about respecting the dead. To enter sorrow's hollow is to trespass on a place of immense, sacred sorrow. It's like walking through a graveyard and shouting, disturbing the eternal rest of those within. The village was sealed to contain a tragedy, and in doing so, it became a monument to it. A living memorial where the air is thick with grief and the trees whisper the names of the lost. So what really happened in that forgotten village? Was it just a plague, or was it something more? Why was the response so extreme? To wall off the living with the dead. The records are gone, and the truth is buried with those who died there. All we are left with are the echoes, the crying from the ground, the ghostly lights in the woods, and the constant, sorrowful gaze of ancient spirits. It serves as a haunting reminder that some places are steeped in so much pain that they are forever changed, and that the past, no matter how deeply you bury it, never truly stays gone. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into one of history's most chilling and tragic mysteries. If you found this story as fascinating and haunting as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more dives into the unknown. Let me know in the comments what you think is happening in this sealed valley. Stay curious and stay safe. Have you ever made a promise so powerful, it felt like it could last a lifetime? And maybe even beyond. What happens when a vow like that is broken? This isn't just another ghost story. This is a true account of a promise made, a promise betrayed, and a love so strong, not even death could end it. It's a story about how the most familiar, everyday things can become instruments of a haunting, a constant reminder of a love forgotten. Imagine this. A couple, deeply in love, just like any other. Let's call them Clara and Thomas. They built a life together, a home filled with laughter and shared dreams. One of their little rituals, their special thing, was a shared cup of tea every single morning. Same time, same mugs, a simple act that anchored their day and their love. But life, as it often does, had a tragic turn in store. Thomas fell ill. A sudden and serious illness that doctors couldn't fix. In his final days, as Clara sat by his bedside, holding his hand, he made her promise something. "Clara," he whispered, his voice weak, "promise me you won't forget us. Promise me you'll stay in our home, where our memories live. And promise me you'll never let anyone else take my place." Through her tears, she promised. She swore she would honor his memory, their love, and their home forever. It was a vow sealed with a final kiss. After Thomas passed, Clara was adrift in a sea of grief. The house that was once a sanctuary of joy became a silent, echoing mausoleum of memories. Every corner held a ghost of a shared moment. The first few months were a blur of sorrow. She kept her promise. She lived alone in their house, surrounded by his belongings. She even continued their morning ritual, making 2 cups of tea, placing one on his side of the table, as if he were still there. It was her way of keeping him close, of holding on to the love they shared. The silence was deafening, but she found a strange comfort in her solitary routine, a painful tribute to her lost husband. But time is a peculiar thing. It can heal, but it can also dull the sharp edges of memory. As months turned into a year, the weight of loneliness began to crush Clara. The vibrant colors of her memories with Thomas started to fade, replaced by the gray reality of her present. Friends and family urged her to move on, to find happiness again. "Thomas would have wanted you to be happy," they'd say, and a small part of her started to believe them. It was at a friend's gathering that she met him. Let's call him David. He was kind, he was gently, and most importantly, he made her laugh again. It started innocently, a coffee date, then another. For the first time since Thomas's death, Clara felt a spark of something new, a glimmer of a future she thought was lost to her forever. David was patient, understanding of her past and her grief. He never pushed, he just offered a steady hand to hold. Slowly, almost without realizing it, Clara began to break her promise. First, it was the small things. She stopped making the 2nd cup of tea in the morning. Then, she started putting away Thomas's photographs, tucking them into drawers, out of sight. It wasn't that she had forgotten Thomas, but the pain of seeing his face every day was too much while she was trying to build something new. She was trying to let go, to embrace a new chapter. David started spending more and more time at the house. He'd help with repairs. They'd cook dinner together. The silence of the house was once again filled with conversation and laughter, but it was a different kind of laughter now. One evening, David stayed the night. As Clara lay in the bed she once shared with Thomas, with another man beside her, a profound sense of guilt washed over her. The promise she made echoed in her mind, a faint whisper she tried to ignore. She had broken her vow. Completely, and that's when it started. The haunting wasn't what you'd expect. No shadowy figures or terrifying apparitions. It was far more subtle, far more personal, and infinitely more chilling. It began with the tea. One morning, Clara woke up to find 2 mugs on the kitchen counter, exactly where she and Thomas used to leave them. One was her mug, and the other was his. She brushed it off, thinking she must have done it out of habit, her mind playing tricks on her. But it happened again the next day, and the day after that. Then, other things started to happen. Thomas's favorite armchair, which had been empty for over a year, would have an imprint in the cushion, as if someone had just been sitting there. The television would switch to the old movie channel he loved to watch, right in the middle of her and David watching something else. These weren't scary in a jump scare kind of way. They were reminders. Every strange occurrence was tied directly to a memory of Thomas, a piece of the life she was trying to leave behind. David tried to be rational. He blamed faulty wiring for the TV, drafts for the strange noises, and Clara's own grieving mind for the rest. But Clara knew better. This wasn't faulty wiring. This was Thomas. He wasn't there to scare her in a malicious way. He was there to remind her. He was haunting her with their memories, punishing her betrayal not with fear, but with the unbearable weight of what she had lost and what she had promised. The most terrifying incident happened one night when David was staying over. He had an old, leather-bound book he loved to read. He left it on the nightstand before they went to sleep. In the middle of the night, they were woken by a loud crash from downstairs. They rushed down, hearts pounding, to find the kitchen in disarray. But what froze Clara's blood was seeing David's book, open on the kitchen table, drenched in freshly brewed tea, its pages warped and ruined, and sitting right next to it, untouched, was Thomas's favorite teacup. The message was clear and undeniable. He doesn't belong here. The haunting escalated, turning their home into a psychological prison. Objects belonging to David would go missing, only to turn up in strange places, or broken. The scent of Thomas's old cologne would suddenly fill a room, a ghostly presence making itself known. It was a constant, unrelenting campaign of subtle terror. The love that had once been Clara's greatest comfort was now the source of her greatest fear. The spirit of her loving husband had returned, not as a monster, but as a warden of their shared past, ensuring his memory would never truly be replaced. Clara and David couldn't live like that. The constant tension, the unexplained events, the overwhelming feeling that they were not alone it shattered their budding relationship. David eventually left, unable to compete with a ghost. He couldn't live in a house that was so clearly and so actively haunted by his girlfriend's dead husband. Clara was alone again, back in the silent house. But it wasn't silent anymore. It was filled with the presence of Thomas, a constant, invisible companion. She was trapped. Trapped by her grief, by her guilt, and by a promise she never should have made. The story serves as a chilling reminder that some bonds are so powerful, they refuse to be broken, and that the deepest love can sometimes lead to the most inescapable haunting. What do you think? Was it Thomas's spirit, refusing to let go? Or was it Clara's own guilt, manifesting in terrifying ways? Sometimes the most frightening ghosts aren't the ones that rattle chains, but the ones that live in our memories and our hearts. Thank you so much for joining me for this story. If you have a true ghost story of your own, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more chilling tales. Stay safe and watch out for the promises you make.